She said it while licking frosting off her fork. That's how this whole thing starts. No thunder, no dramatic music, no slamming doors, just a red velvet cupcake, half a smile, and a sentence that turned my stomach inside out. This is the longest I've ever gone without cheating. The room went silent for half a second. Then came the laughter. Not polite chuckles, actual laughter. Loud, joyful. Her gym friend let out a whistle. One of her coworkers even applauded. I just sat there, blinking at my water glass like maybe I'd heard it wrong. She looked right at me, waiting. I didn't laugh. I didn't smile. I didn't ask what she meant or play along with the joke. I just slowly slid my chair back, took out my phone, and asked the waiter to split the bill. She kept joking as I stood up. "You're not seriously mad, are you?" she asked. "It's just dinner talk." I didn't answer. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't tell her I'd already been suspecting something for weeks. I just walked out of the restaurant, got in my car, and drove until I saw nothing familiar out the window. By the time I checked my phone again, it was buzzing with messages. The most surprising one wasn't from her. It was from her mother. "What did you do to her? She's screaming and crying. She's not making any sense. What happened?" I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen and whispered to myself. Finally, someone else gets to feel confused for a change. Because that wasn't the first red flag. It was the last one. You know what the worst part is? It wasn't even the sentence itself. It was how comfortable she was saying it. How easily it rolled off her tongue like a throwaway joke about traffic or bad coffee. "This is the longest I've ever gone without cheating." She said it like she'd been waiting for someone to ask. Like it was a badge of honor. And everyone else at that table? They didn't flinch. They didn't ask questions. They just assumed it was her being wild again, like they knew things I didn't. And maybe they did. I wasn't always like this. The quiet guy. The husband who just nods and disappears into the background. But being married to Harper was like drowning in glitter. It looks beautiful on the surface, but it clings to everything and never lets go. The first few years were confusing. I'd chalk things up to stress, to her bold personality, to me overthinking. She was always surrounded by people, co-workers, platonic guy friends, old flames who just happened to still text her at midnight. She said I was insecure, controlling, that I didn't get how adults communicate anymore. And I believed her. There was that one time she came back from a weekend trip with her friends and accidentally called me Brian. I laughed it off, said it must have been a dream. Then there was that late-night phone call I overheard. She said it was her cousin. Her cousin doesn't speak in whispers. And he definitely doesn't say, "I miss your skin." But every time I brought anything up, she turned it into a performance. Tears, denial, yelling, silence, the whole cycle. And I would always apologize just to keep the peace. I thought, maybe this is just what love looks like now. Maybe all marriages get weird. No, that dinner joke? That was her testing the waters. Seeing if I'd break character. If I'd finally snap and say something. But I didn't. Because by that point, I wasn't angry. I was numb. What she didn't know was that 2 days before that dinner, I had already opened a private bank account. I had already taken photos of her messages when she left her laptop open. I had already started packing things in the garage in boxes labeled donations. I was done being the fool. She thought I'd stay seated. She thought I'd stay silent. But silence was just the beginning of what I had planned. I didn't go back home that night. I didn't answer her texts, or the missed calls, or the "come on." It was a joke. Voice message she left in that too sweet tone she used when she knew she crossed a line. Instead, I parked in the lot of a 24-hour diner and stared out the window for hours, sipping cold coffee and replaying everything in my head. Not just the dinner. The years of it. The gaslighting. The lies dressed as sarcasm. The emotional boomerangs she always threw, where somehow I ended up apologizing for reacting to her betrayals. But the craziest part? I still wasn't sure if I had enough. Enough proof. Enough courage. Enough self-respect. I didn't have to wonder long. The next morning, before I even figured out what I was going to do, I got a message on Facebook. From a name I didn't recognize at first, Rowan Blevins. No profile picture. 2 mutual friends, one of whom was Harper. It was just one sentence. "Check your wife's cloud backup. You need to see what she's hiding." My heart dropped into my stomach. Harper had given me access to her iCloud years ago when she kept forgetting her password. I never used it. Never even thought about it, honestly. But now, my hands shaking, I logged in from my laptop while sitting in the back of my car outside a storage unit I'd just rented an hour before. And there it was. Screenshots, videos, audio clips, messages backed up from a deleted Telegram account, hotel receipts, calendar entries that matched business trips. Most of it featured a guy I recognized from one of her work events. Nathan, the one with the too tight shirts and the habit of calling her trouble in front of me like I wasn't even there. There were things I can't write about here. Things that made me close the laptop and physically gag. Things that made me feel like I'd been sleeping beside a stranger who wore my last name like a borrowed coat. But the final blow? A video. One she filmed herself, sitting in the driver's seat of her car, grinning, talking to the camera like she was making some private vlog. I can't believe he still hasn't figured it out, she laughed. I could cheat in broad daylight, and that man would still ask if I needed anything from the store. That's when I stopped feeling numb. That's when I felt something worse, clarity. I didn't reply to Rowan. I didn't message Harper. I didn't scream, or cry, or throw my laptop. I did one thing, and one thing only. I hit download all. Then I messaged someone I never thought I'd have to talk to again. My older brother, Keaton, a lawyer. I told him one sentence. I need to get out. Quietly. Completely. And Keaton replied, say no more. Keaton didn't waste time. Within 12 hours, he sent me a checklist, a contact for a forensic tech who could authenticate the cloud data, and a divorce attorney he trusted. I wasn't ready to say the word divorce out loud yet, but I was ready to stop pretending. The plan was simple. Don't confront, don't accuse, don't tip her off. Just gather. Watch. Position. Harper had always thrived in chaos, but silence? Silence unsettled her. It made her nervous when I didn't react. So I stayed quiet. I ignored her calls. I didn't come home. And when she finally messaged, asking if I was still pouting about that dumb joke, I left her on read. By day 2, she started unraveling. Her texts became frantic. She left voicemails swinging between anger and apologies. 1 minute mocking me for being too sensitive, the next begging me to talk, insisting she was only joking, that I was the only real thing in her life. It was theater, and I'd seen the act too many times. But I needed more than emotion. I needed her to out herself. So I played the one card I knew would draw her out. I posted a casual photo on social media. Nothing dramatic, just me at a coffee shop with my laptop, tagged in a different part of the city than usual. No caption, no mention of her. It worked like a detonator. 2 hours later, I got an email from her work address, a forwarded message chain between her and her boss, asking why she had suddenly taken emergency leave, citing a family crisis. Her boss didn't seem concerned, probably because it wasn't the first time. Then came the twist I didn't expect. That same day, Rowan messaged me again. Only this time, it was a name I did recognize, but not as a friend. It was Gretchen Navarro, Harper's former college roommate. The one she used to call jealous and bitter. The one she blocked 3 years ago after an ugly misunderstanding. Gretchen had seen my post. She didn't know the whole story, but she wanted to help. And she sent something that cracked everything wide open. A group photo from a wedding Harper attended 6 months ago. A wedding she told me she couldn't bring me to because it was just close family. The picture showed Harper, in the front, arm around Nathan, smiling like they were on a honeymoon. And worse, she was wearing a necklace I gave her on our 2nd anniversary. One she told me she lost in the laundry. That was it. That was the final switch. I sent the photo to Keaton, told him to move forward. We'd start with asset separation and temporary distance. Then, quietly, completely, I'd pull out of everything. The house, the joint accounts, the utilities, the passwords. She wouldn't even feel it until it was too late. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And I was going to carve it out of the silence she once mocked. It happened on a Tuesday, late afternoon. The sky was overcast, a dull gray that made everything feel quieter, heavier. I was sitting in the storage unit parking lot, sipping burnt coffee, when my phone buzzed with a notification from the security camera I had temporarily installed by our front door, something Harper didn't know about. The video loaded slowly, but when it did, I saw her, standing there, holding grocery bags in one hand and her phone in the other, texting with her thumb, probably ranting to one of her friends. She looked annoyed, like the inconvenience of my absence was now ruining her week. Then she opened the front door. I watched her pause in the threshold. She didn't step inside. She didn't move. Just stood there like she was waiting for the furniture to load, like our home had glitched. The living room was empty. No couch. No TV. No rug. The bookshelf gone. Even the paintings had been taken down. She walked inside slowly, her steps echoing through the bare walls. She passed by where our wedding photo used to hang. Nothing was there, not even the nail. And then came the moment that's burned into my memory. She called out my name. Once. Softly, like she still thought I might pop out from behind a wall, grinning, saying this was some elaborate prank. But no one answered. I had moved out in less than 12 hours. My brother sent a moving crew that specialized in quiet exits. No logos on the trucks, no uniforms, paid in full up front. I had already signed the papers, already frozen the accounts, already rerouted my mail. The only thing I left behind was her favorite scented candle and a single sheet of paper on the kitchen counter. Blank. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I wanted her to sit in that silence and hear everything she'd ignored. That evening, my phone exploded. Dozens of messages. Voicemails. One after another. At first angry, then desperate. She accused me of embarrassing her, of sabotaging her life, of leaving her exposed. Exposed to what exactly? Her own lies? She begged me to talk. Said we could go to therapy. That this wasn't fair. That I was being cruel. Cruel? I let that word sink in. This woman who once laughed about cheating, in front of a crowd, now suddenly wanted to play the victim. Now that the spotlight wasn't flattering anymore. But I didn't respond. I didn't explain. Because it wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about clarity. And she finally had it. A week passed before I heard her voice again in real time. She had tried everything. Calls, emails, DMs, even looping in mutual friends to check on me. But I stayed completely silent. I didn't block her. I just left her in the void. Every message was read, never answered. That silence drove her crazy. She wasn't used to it. Harper was a storm who thrived on reaction. Good or bad didn't matter, as long as you responded. Without an audience, she started unraveling. But then, something happened that I never expected. Her father called me. Now, you need to understand, Harper and her dad hadn't spoken much in the last 3 years. She always called him rigid, said he never respected her choices, and that he was emotionally controlling. I believed her for a long time, until I met him once. Just once. And in 5 quiet minutes, I realized that maybe she didn't cut ties because he was cruel. Maybe it was because he saw straight through her. And now he was calling me. I answered out of pure curiosity. His voice was calm, low, and very direct. I heard what happened, he said. I assume most of it is true. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Then he said, she's staying at my house now. She came here crying, saying you humiliated her. But I've seen her do this before, with other people. I never thought she'd do it in a marriage, but here we are. I stayed silent. But my heart was pounding. He continued, she's trying to twist the narrative, making it sound like you abandoned her without reason. But she showed her cards. Son, you just folded the game she was rigging. He wasn't calling to scold me. He wasn't calling to fix anything. He was calling to say he believed me. Then, right before he hung up, he said the one thing that Harper had never allowed herself to hear. Whatever you do next, don't let her cry her way back in. You deserve peace. Don't forget that. It wrecked her pride. Badly. Because Harper found out the next day that her own father had told her therapist the truth. That he advised her not to contact me again. That he offered to pay for her to stay away from me if it helped her process the consequences. She messaged me that night, 5 paragraphs long. Rambling. Conflicted. Torn between rage and heartbreak. She called it a betrayal. She said I'd turned her own blood against her. But no. She had done that all on her own. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. Her own circle had started filling in the silence. If you thought she would go quietly, you don't know Harper. Losing control wasn't just inconvenient for her. It was existential. And silence? That was a mirror she couldn't stand to look into. So she did what she always did when the walls closed in. She turned the drama into a performance. Except this time, I wasn't in the front row. I was off stage, holding the receipts. It happened at a mutual friend's engagement party. I wasn't invited, obviously. Harper, though, showed up like nothing had happened. Dressed to kill, smiling like her world wasn't collapsing behind the scenes. People told me she worked the room like a campaign trail, hugging old friends, laughing too loud, spinning stories about how we were on a break because I was going through a rough time emotionally. She even hinted that I might be struggling with infidelity guilt. The projection was Olympic level. But the one mistake she made? She forgot that not everyone in that room was loyal to her version of events. One of her co-workers, Brent, had been at the original dinner. He'd watched the whole cheating joke moment go down. He'd been one of the few who didn't laugh. And he brought his fiancée to the party, a woman named Elise. Elise, it turns out, was also friends with Gretchen Navarro. And Gretchen had already filled her in on what really happened. You see where this is going. Halfway through Harper's, "I'm just trying to give him space" sob story, Elise apparently tilted her head and said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "Is that the same husband you laughed about cheating on? Or was that someone else?" Boom. Harper froze. Brent said she went pale like someone pulled the plug on her blood pressure. She tried to recover, said something like, "It was just a misunderstanding. People exaggerate things." But Elise didn't let up. She told the table exactly what she'd heard. That I'd left because Harper had humiliated me. That I hadn't even gone public. That other people were stepping forward because Harper had built her marriage like a house of mirrors, beautiful until someone flipped on the lights. She tried to cry, apparently. Said people were turning against her unfairly. That she was still his wife. But it didn't land. Not this time. Because the mask had slipped too far, and everyone could see the cracks. Brent messaged me later that night. She left early. People weren't buying it. Thought you should know. Whatever you're doing, it's working. And I'll admit, reading that, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. Relief. I didn't need to destroy her reputation. She was finally doing it all on her own. I wrote it 3 weeks after everything collapsed. After the dinner, the silence, the move, the footage, the father's call, the party. After her web of lies finally snagged on the truth and collapsed under its own weight. I didn't send it in anger. I didn't write it to provoke. I wrote it because I needed closure, not from her, but for me. The message was short. No accusations. No drama. Just this. I don't hate you, but I won't come back. I gave you loyalty, and you gave me spectacle. I'm done being your audience. I hope you find whatever peace you pretended to have with me. Please don't contact me again. I'm healing now. And just like that, I blocked her. Everywhere. Not to punish her. To protect myself. That was 3 months ago. Today, I live in a quiet apartment on the other side of the city. I bought secondhand furniture, got a dog, started cooking again. I see my brother every Sunday. I go for walks without checking if she's texting. I laugh without wondering if it's okay to. I exist without shrinking. Last week, I met someone. At a bookstore of all places. Her name is Lainey. She's soft-spoken and asked me what I thought about the book in her hand instead of telling me what to think. It's new, slow, gentle, and it doesn't come with alarm bells. I'm not in a rush. I'm just, okay. For the first time in a long time, I'm okay. I used to think silence was punishment. Now I know, it's freedom. Thanks for reading. If you're in something that feels like performance instead of partnership, I hope you find your quiet escape too. You deserve it.